I thought I don't want to, say the same thing that it says in the flyer. So very briefly, Steve played his entire career in Major League Baseball as a right-handed pitcher for the Pittsburg Pirates. The Pirates. Started in 1964 and then from 66 through 74. He played a key role in the Pirates' victory over the Baltimore Orioles in the 1971 World Series, when he recorded 2 complete game victories. He remains the last National League pitcher to throw a complete game in Game 7 of a World Series. Congratulations. After his playing career ended, he had a 34-year career as a television sports commentator. This man has done it all. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Steve Blass.
Thank you very much for that welcome. That's the first time in the last 7 years I've been introduced without getting booed. I've been struggling through Buckos quite recently, so I appreciate that very much. Some housekeeping, just briefly. I bought some pictures in case anybody wants an autograph. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is that there is a fee. It's $5. That's the most I can pay you to take one. Yeah. First things first, Patty mentioned my wife, Karen. My wife of 58 years plus 4 years of bad behavior in high school. We have a former neighbor in the audience, Pat Sloey, who lived right down the street in Pittsburgh. We had a wonderful neighborhood. We won't tell you all the details because it would take a long time, but Pat and his family are good friends and neighbors, former neighbors. And it was a great neighborhood that we worked in. I have to tell you my story about our family. We have 2 sons, 5 grandchildren, and a couple of great-grandchildren. But our youngest son, Chris, when he was in 1st grade, up at Eisenhower School in Upper St. Clair in Pittsburgh, they gave him an assignment, and they said, "We want you to write down what your father does for work." And he handed in a blank page. And the teacher said, "Well, Chris, what's this all about?" He said, "Well, my father doesn't work, he plays baseball." He's come around a little bit, but he's no longer in the will. Thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here, and we've been here for many years. It's kind of interesting as a athlete, or in my case, a former athlete, that you can always get a kind of indication of what kind of year you've had by the number of invitations to these sort of things you get. 1968, I won 18 games. Heck, I could have gone out a couple nights a week to speak, got the invites. 3 years later, we won the World Series. Heck, I could have gone out every night of the week to speak. For the last 5 or 6 years, well, this is the second invitation I've had. The first was from my son Chris last summer for dinner, so it kind of gives you an idea what kind of year you've had. It's a difficult time for your Pittsburgh Pirates right now. And just to give you kind of an example, last summer in Pittsburgh, I walked into our big grocery store, and I'm in the produce section, and this woman comes right up, gets in my face, and said, "The Pirates stink and it's your fault." I said, "Lady, give me a break. I'm just here for the kumquats. Just give me a break. I've been watching this too. So it's been very, very difficult. To give you another example, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, asked me last summer, he said, "Can you give me a couple of tickets for the game next week?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "What time does it start?" I said, "What time can you get here?" I said, "Where am I sitting? Where are the tickets going to be?" I said, "Second base. We're not using it this year." And I will never quit on it. I mean, the Pirates gave me my dream, and I'll talk about that. It's been very, very difficult. One thing. Oh God, let him in, please. One thing I thought I'd share with you, this is kind of a confession, because I am currently right in the middle of a long-standing love affair. Sorry, Karen. It's with the city of Bradenton and Anna Maria Island. This city, this area, has become more than a second home to us. We first came here with the Pirates in 1969. We had moved from Fort Myers, we'd been in Fort Myers, we moved up here, didn't know anything about Bradenton. And the Pirates were able to get us housing, and it was out here on the island. And so our first year was 1969. And before I even went to our little duplex that we shared with Jim Bunning, Hall of Famer Jim Bunning, who I learned a lot from, we stopped at Ginny's. Is Ginny still there? Yeah. And they had Street and Smith baseball album. And I had a good year in '68. I wanted to get that thing because they were going to write good things about it. So I was in Ginny's before I got into our little duplex. But we shared that, and we paid, for 7 weeks, we paid $350. That changed. We wound up renting out here for the better part of 30 years. A lot of them at La Costa. There's a condo down between the bridge, Cortez Bridge, and Manatee. And then we also rented at the Nautilus, which is right next to the bistro. So we finally bought a house. We bought a house in Bradenton, right down by IMG. So they weren't going to trick us anymore. Not after 30 years of rent. No. But we love it. We've got a place down there, and we're very happy with it, down the street from Patty. And that's also a great neighborhood. I wanted to tell you one of my favorite things to memorize about my years in baseball. Number one is the World Series, of course, and we'll talk about that. But right up next to that, close to that, it was right after we won the World Series. Karen and I were living in Connecticut, where we're both from. And we were driving the boys down 301 south of the border. I don't know if 95 even existed then, but we got close to Bradenton, and we came up over the bridge by Manatee Memorial. And I don't know if you remember, there used to be a big billboard right after you got past that bridge coming into town. And that bridge, in February of 1972, said, "Welcome to Bradenton, Florida, winter home of the world champion Pittsburg Pirates." That was one of the nicest things I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, I still remember that vividly, coming over that little humpback bridge and seeing that down the right side. So we're very happy. We're taxpayers, and we're very happy to spend a lot of time down here. And it's Bradenton and Anna Maria has been very special, very special. Still it is. So this afternoon, I'd like to maybe share some thoughts about a somewhat checkered career, 60 plus years for the Pirates. The day after I graduated from high school, I signed my first my first professional contract. I come from a town in Connecticut of 800 people, Falls Village, Connecticut. And it was the most wonderful place to grow up. So small, in fact, that we didn't even have enough people there to have a town drunk. The guys had to rotate. Everybody had to take their turn until Uncle Larry got his turn, and then the rotation ended. But it was a wonderful little town. I was obsessed. I can't ever remember not wanting to have a baseball or some kind of ball in my hand. It was an obsession from the time I was probably 5 years old. That's all I wanted to do was play ball. And I played Little League ball, got into high school, and had a good pitching career in high school. Pitched 5 no-hitters my senior year, so the scouts came around. And when I was 18 years old, the Pittsburg Pirates gave me a chance to live my dream of playing professional baseball. Now, I have friends that say, "Well, yeah, the Pirates gave you that chance. You know, Mets could have done it. Well, the Mets couldn't do it then. But the Yankees could have done it. Dodgers could have done it. White Sox, Cubs, anybody could have given you that chance." I said, "No, but it was the Pittsburg Pirates. And for that reason, the Pittsburg Pirates will have my loyalty for the rest of my life. When somebody gives you the opportunity to live your dream, you don't forget about them. You stick with it. I will always be there for the Buccos." And it's been a struggle at times, but there's always also been some wonderful times. So you can't ever count on me quitting on the Pittsburg Pirates. So, I mean, everybody has dreams. Everybody has dreams. Not everybody gets a chance to live them. So I've not been carried away with all this stuff in the big leagues. I keep track of the fact that when I was 18 years old, it was the Pittsburg Pirates that gave me that chance. And I went away to play professional ball at the age of 18. I'd never been away from Falls Village, Connecticut. It was all brand new. So I was down in Kingsport, Tennessee, in what they called the Rookie League. That was even under Class D. There was the Rookie League, then D, C, B, A, AA, and AAA before you got to the big leagues. hit every rung on that ladder, every single rung, and loved every minute of it because I was living that dream. But my first year down in Kingsborough, I'm down there by myself. They put us in a rooming house. The Pirates signed 40 boys that year. And it was like a revolving door. We'd wake up in the morning, 2 guys would be released, 3 more would be coming in. But it was so exciting. And I was from this little town in Falls Village, Connecticut, where, Connecticut, we scheduled 30 games and play 15 because of the weather. And then I see these kids from Southern California, from Florida, from Texas. I said, what did I get myself into? But I was down there a couple of weeks and I decided, well, I'm on my own. I got some underwear that needs to be cleaned, some socks, so I went to a laundromat. I had about 6 pair of underwear, 7 pair of socks, throw them in there, and I don't know what I'm doing. I throw them all in, and I see this little box up on the wall, like a thing you put money in. It said soap. Well, okay, we got 12 items, let's get done. Might as well get 12 boxes of soap. So I had 12 little boxes of that soap. Threw it in, stuffed concussion on, and I ran away. I was out of there. For the rest of that summer, this is a true story. Some of my stories are true. This one is true. I mailed my laundry back to my mother in Falls Village in a little brown box with straps around it the rest of that summer until she, one time, and she would mail back. She mailed back, and I opened it up. It was the middle of August, and she had sent some chocolate chip cookies. And I learned how to do the laundromat. Trust me, I learned. So yeah, but it all worked out. Came up through the minor leagues. St. Karen and I got married in 1963 at AAA Columbus, Ohio, and actually right after the season we got married, October 5th. 2 days later, we were honeymooning in the Dominican Republic. It was the year after Trujillo, the dictator, had been assassinated. That was our honeymoon that she's never forgotten. We had machine gunners in each end of the dugout. The country was in chaos. It was unbelievable. It was unreal. And so that was where our honeymoon was. I had one incident down there that Karen will probably never forget. There was an infielder for the New York Yankees that was from Santiago in the Dominican Republic where I was playing. And he every time I faced him, he wanted to bunt on me. He tried to bunt. So I'm crazed. I'm 21 years old. I'm a hothead. So we bunted one night, and it was toward me a little bit. So I ran past the ball and tackled him. And we got in this big scrum, not much damage done. But they threw us all out of the ball game, obviously. And at the end of the game, he went home, and they took me to jail. True. And so I called Karen and said, "You'll be a little late tonight." And she said, "So what, you going out and having a beer with the guys?" I said, "No, I'm in jail." And she hung up, which I would have done for this situation. So, but that was an experience, find out. It helped me learn to get my slider. I had to have a breaking ball. Coming up through minor leagues, I'd have good fastball and a curve. But the curve was inconsistent, and you have to have a breaking ball to complement the fastball, or you're not going to win the big leagues. And I developed a slider. They cut it up. They call it a cutter now, a cut fastball. That's the old original pitch that was so effective. Ted Williams said the slider changed the game of baseball because in the right location, it's a really tough pitch to hit because it looks like a fastball, and then right at the end of its journey to home plate, it does that. So now it's out on the end of the bat instead of the fat part of the bat. And you don't see the spin of a curveball on it. So it's a great pitch, but it doesn't have the speed of a fastball or the break of a curveball. So in the wrong location, all gone. And so it was a great pitch for me. And I learned that down there, and it helped me get to the big leagues. So that certainly happened. In the big leagues, I joined a bunch of guys that just won the World Series 4 years earlier, the Pittsburg Pirates in 1960 with a Mazeroski home run. Those guys were so great to me. They didn't have a thing. They played a lot of tricks on rookies. This group helped me, and I learned a lot. I went to the University of Baseball. I couldn't have gotten to college if my hair was on fire, as you see, because I didn't have any. I don't have. But I went to the University of Baseball. My professors were Roberto Clemente, Bill Mazeroski, Bob Friend, Vernon, Dick Crow, all those guys. And they helped me to go from a ball player to a major leaguer. That's a big deal. There's a lot of ball players. But become a major leaguer, when you think about it, your responsibilities to your city, to your organization, to your neighborhood, to the people you work for, your teammates, your manager, your coaches. You have a responsibility now, and it's big time. And they help me be aware of charity work, how to handle the media, how to act in the hotels on the road. And they help me learn all these things, your responsibilities. And I'll never forget them for that. I think about that often. Bill Vernon was one of them. Bill just passed away this year. Bill Vernon was a teammate early on. He was a coach and a manager for me. And a quick story about Bill Vernon, that after the World Series, I won 19 games for him. The next year, I couldn't do anything. And Bill Vernon was the same person both years. And that's all you need to know, really, about a person. Bill Vernon is that kind of person. I miss him tremendously, and some of those guys are gone. But those guys, they also had a sense of humor. Like Clemente, for instance. When I was a rookie, I won a couple of games because we all had Clemente up on this pedestal. I mean, you almost had to feel like as a young Pirate, you need to validate yourself to be a teammate with him. And he had that presence. So I won a couple of games. I sat in my locker, and he's about over there by himself. I said, all right, well, we'll go over and get that squared away with Roberto. So I walked up and said, hey, Roberto, here's the deal. If I ever get traded, I'm going to pitch you inside, because every national pitcher pitches you away, and you hit 350 every year. I said, Blass, I'm going to tell you one thing. You pitch me inside, I will hit the ball to Harrisburg. Good talk. Little baseball life lesson, And Bill Mazeroski still is one of my dear friends, and one, if not the best second baseman that I ever played. It was just magic to watch him. And so he never said much. He was a very quiet guy, but when he said something, it meant something. And one of the lessons he gave me along the way was the fact that, hey, you're in the big leagues now, kid. No excuses. People don't care why you didn't get the job done. They want to hear how you got the job done. So no excuses. This is the big leagues. They don't want to hear excuses. But he also had a little light side to him. Bill played second base, and he respected everybody else's responsibilities at their position. So he wasn't a guy that's going to give somebody advice about how to play right field or left field or catch. He took care of second base. He respected you. And the only thing that really bothered him was, you got to kind of picture this, when a Pirate pitcher was getting beat up and the manager would want to try to buy some time to get somebody ready in the bullpen, they would signal out to Maz, hey, Maz, go talk to him while we buy some time with this guy. So there's one classic night, I'm out there and I'm getting my face ripped off. My earned run average is going up faster than the price of gas was in 1974. Remember that? So I'm getting crushed. So Danny Murtaugh points out to Maz, he says, Maz, go over and talk to Blass, get somebody ready. So Bill comes over and, well, it's not my idea. I don't want to be here. You know what? You are getting your ass kicked. So Maz, little life lesson there from him. Willie Stargell and I came up through the minor leagues together, and Hall of Famer, and I miss him again to this day. He died the night before we opened PNC Park. The night before. That was a tough day that next day, and we knew it was coming. But we came up through the minor leagues together. And I tell these stories about my university professors. Willie, every All-Star break, would have a party at his house in Pittsburgh. And every year we would go, and Willie, the day before, would go out to Sears and buy a big brand new rubber garbage can, rubber, fill it up with ice, and every conceivable brand of alcohol you ever thought about in the ice, and then a gallon of grape juice to hide the taste and the effect. And then he would stir it with one of his vats. And we took the vat out, you could no longer see the label. And you could have sold that stuff in Home Depot for paint thinner. So that's the kind of the cast of characters I joined as a rookie. But they helped me go from being a ball player to a major leaguer. And I think, the call to the big leagues. I have to tell you this story because I think every professional athlete throughout their lives will remember getting called up to the big leagues. The National Hockey League, NFL, anything. The Pirates, when you get the call to go to the big leagues, you remember it because that's what you've been dreaming about since you're 8 years old. I'll tell you about the call. Karen and I had just been married. We were living in Columbus, Ohio, one step away from the big leagues, a little one-bedroom apartment, and we just got together. And so I had to go on a road trip from Columbus up to the northern tier, they call it, Buffalo, Syracuse, and Rochester for a road trip. 14 days on a bus with 23-year-old guys. At the end of it, who stunk like billy goats. So we go Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. It's the last day of the road trip, twilight doubleheader. We start at 5 o'clock. We get through at 1 o'clock in the morning. I pitch the last game. So we shower up and get back on the bus and drive all the way back from Syracuse down to Columbus. I go to bed at 6 o'clock and I'm crushed. I'm just done. 10 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings in our little apartment. Karen picks it up and said, hello, and this gentleman said, I need to talk to Steve. And she said, well, he's sleeping. I'm not going to wake him up. He said the wrong night. And he said, I really need to talk to Steve. And she said, listen, mister, my husband's a professional athlete. He's had a long road trip, been away 14 days. He's trying to get to the big leagues. And I'm not going to wake him up. He said, young lady, my name is Joel Brown. I am the general manager of the Pittsburg Pirates, and we want Steve to come up and pitch for us. And the next thing you heard in that little apartment was, get your ass out of bed, we're going to the big leagues. And that's how I got the call. That's exactly how I got the call. And then off we went. I think, so I was a rookie in the big leagues. I'm in the big leagues. And the first day I got there, the Pirates had an off day. They weren't playing, so we walked from the Webster Hall Hotel where we were staying, across the Pitt campus over to Forbes Field, and I walked in, and the equipment manager was in there working, John Hallahan, Louis. And I walked in, and he's seen this dance before. I'm looking all over the place. He says, come on over here. So he walks me over to my locker. There's my locker. Iron City Beer, Steve Blass. I mean, it's a damn nice sight. So he said, well, you're going to put your uniform on and go out, walk out on the field? I said, it's raining cats and dogs, Louis. He said, take a look in there. He said, if that one gets wet, there's another one. That's one of the reasons they call it the big leagues. I went out in the rain, got that uniform. But a lot of things, rookies are very vulnerable and gullible. So a lot of the funny things that happen in the big leagues are rookies because it's all brand new. And I had a couple of those situations myself that took place. One was against Willie McCovey of the Giants. Big Willie, 6'7", 240. When he swung the bat, you as a pitcher could feel the breeze. So we're at Forbes Field, my rookie year, and Forbes Field was a barn of a ballpark. 457 feet to center field, 436 to left center, 406 where Mattis hit the ball over the wall. Down the left field line, 365, but there's a big scoreboard and a clock you had to hit it over to get a home run. It's a big ballpark. One night, Willie McCovey hit a ball off me that went over the 457 sign on the way up. And back in the ballpark, there was a Sherman Park golf course, and it disrupted a group playing there. And I have a friend who says, former friend because he said it, who insists that every Monday night in the eastern sky at 10 o'clock, you could still see that ball in rotation down here. And so as a result of that, and every time we went to San Francisco, there would be a limousine waiting at the airport for me, paid for by Willie McCovey, who wanted to make sure nothing bad happened to me in the bus ride on the way to the hotel, that I would miss my turn. So that was one situation that happened. The other one was one of his teammates. I'm 21 years old. I'm just in the big leagues, and who comes up to bat for the San Francisco Giants? Of course, Willie Mays. I still have his bubblegum card in my back pocket somewhere. And I said, what are we going to do? And so I threw him a good slider. He tapped the ball wide of first base. And I'm so delighted that it's not out in San Francisco Bay. I'm just a step late getting over to cover first as Don Clendenin, the first baseman, went over and got the ball. He tossed it to me, but I was just a step late, so Mays was safe. We won the ball game 9-2. I had one of my great first games as a rookie. So the next day, the coach comes in and says, Murtaugh would like to see you in his office. Danny Murtaugh, our manager. So I said, yeah, it's going to be fun, little father-son chat, saying, how you doing, kid? So I walk in, put his arm around me. He said, Mays can really get down the line, can't he? I said, yeah, Danny sure can. He said, it'll cost you $100 to see if you can get there first next time. And don't spell my name wrong on the check. And I was making $7,000. That was the minimum back then. Now it's $540,000 or something like that. So the $100 check hurt. I could feel it. So I made sure I got to first base in time for the next 10 years. So I got that done. There's a couple stories that are a little bit involved and kind of keep up with me because these are things that happen. After my rookie year, I won a couple games, but Joe Brown, the general manager, said, you're going to go down to the Florida Winter Instructional League. And that is I don't know, it's still going on. No, it's not. It's over by now. But that's a league around here where a lot of the major league teams will send their highly regarded prospects for more seasoning. Doesn't count on your regular record. But you go down there and you play some more games. You refine your skills and work on fundamentals. And so I went down there. I was no longer a prospect. I was more of a suspect. But I went down there. And while we were there, the Pirates signed a boy named Harold Clem, big farm kid from Iowa, about 6'4", 220. And they sent him down to the instructional league to get an exposure to professional baseball. So we played all the tricks on Harold that you play on rookies. We sent him after the left-hand bat. We sent him after the key to the batter's box. We should have been tipped off. He found these things. See, we should have known about Harold right then. So a few days later, we got Harold out in the outfield. The manager's got us all out there for about an hour and a half, maybe 2-hour session of going over one of our defensive plays as the Pittsburg Pirates team from the rookie league all the way up to the big leagues. This one play, and it applies all the way up through the system. And it's called the defense of the double steal. Okay? That is when a team has a runner on first base and a runner on third base. Okay? And they're going to try to have the runner from first base go to steal second. And while we're throwing to second, the guy from third will come home. That's the double steal. Our defensive scheme to prevent that and deal with that was very simple. Okay? When our pitcher would throw the pitch, the guy would take off from first to steal second. Okay? The catcher throws the ball low. The pitcher reaches up. That's the key. Picks it off. Doesn't let it go to second. And turns around and throws it home. You get the guy coming in from third base. Very simple. 2 hours. 2 hours we worked on this. The next day, we're playing the White Sox instructional league team over in Sarasota. It's the bottom of the ninth. We have a 2-1 lead. They have runners on first and third with nobody out, and we've got fabulous Harold Clem out on the mountain. And Harold's having a nice day. He's watching the planes land at SRQ. He's watching the grass grow. And he thinks better than working on that farm back in Iowa. At that point, we find out they're going to try the double steal. Well, this is great. Yesterday, we just spent 2 hours working on our defensive play. We are ready. So our manager gives our defensive play sign to everybody. The infielders have got it. The catchers got it. The outfielders have got it. The parking lot attendant across the street has got it. We are so ready for these guys. So fabulous Harold goes into the stretch, throws the pitch. The guy takes off from first to steal second. The catcher guns it through. Harold's supposed to reach up. Harold ducks. Harold ducks. 2 hours yesterday. But we're not done yet because the second baseman cuts in front of second base, cuts it off. Now he's going to throw it back to home, get the guy. And now Harold's got it. Harold's back in Iowa. He left right after we had the services for the manager. So those kind of things happen. There's one other story that came up my rookie year. We went down to Houston. Houston had just opened the Astrodome, and we went down there my rookie year, and I got a chance to pitch, and I pitched well. Won the game 9-2, and the only guy I had trouble with that night was Jimmy Wynn. They called him the toy cannon. He had a double, and I think a couple singles, and I think he hit a home run. Everybody else I had no trouble with. Hardly anybody else touched me. I had one of the best games I've ever had. but it was Jimmy Wynn. It was all Jimmy Wynn. So that's fine, win that game. We go around San Francisco, LA, do the whole trip, come back to Pittsburgh. Now we're going back down to the Astrodome, and Danny decides that I'm going to pitch the opening game of the series because I had not won anything in between since the Astrodome. So I'm going to pitch. And back then, the Pirates still do it. If you're a starting pitcher, you're going to pitch the first game of the series. You're going to have a clubhouse meeting, and you're going to go over the opposing lineup to see how the pitch doing. Okay, so I've got my lineup there. And they all remembered that, I had a good game and Jimmy Wynn was the real problem. So we really basically didn't talk about anybody else but Jimmy Wynn in this meeting. Really emphasized how I might try to pitch to him. And, didn't talk about anybody else. So I'm all set. We go out, they get us out 1, 2, 3 in the top of the first. I go out and lo and behold, Jimmy Wynn's the leadoff hitter. I guess they had remembered too. They didn't have a few more at bats. So I got in the little meeting and we decided in the meeting that I was going to pitch him sliders away and fastballs in. Sliders away, fastballs in. And so, all right, I give him a good slider, he fouls it back, 0-1, right on the plane. Next pitch, fastball inside, okay, move him off the plate. All right, good, 1-1. Next pitch, takes it for strike 2, okay, come back inside, and then we're going to set him up with a big slow curve, okay. So, wind up, over the top, big slow curve, swinging this strike 3. He was the only guy I got out that night. People running around the base. 2 guys from McDonald's came in and ran around. Everybody came. So that didn't quite work. But I can't talk to you without talking about the 1971 World Series. It's a favorite of mine. And I wear this ring. And you can't buy this thing. All the money they make now, and I'm not concerned about that because I would like to be pitching now. But this represents everything you dream about. Every player wants to have this thing, and you have it for the rest of your life. And it's not about the money. It's the people you went through that experience with. And a lot of them aren't with me now. The manager, Danny Roberto, Stargell, Clemente, Bob Moose, Doc Ellis. So many guys that I played with, and not just the stars, all the guys you go through that with, and it's just something that is with you. I don't wear it every day because I want to have it for special occasions, but I look at this and it reminds me of those people that I went through that with, and it reminds me of something else too, because I won the 7th game, but I also. Before that, the best game I ever pitched in my life was Game 3 because we were down 2 games to the Orioles. And this was a powerhouse Oriole team. They had won the World Series the year before. They won 100 regular season games. And coming in to face us in the World Series, they had already won 13 games in a row, including the regular season finale, the playoffs. And then they won the first 2 World Series. We're down 2 games to none to a powerhouse. And I got to pitch the 3rd game. I pitched the game of my life. You got to win that 3rd game because you can't go down 3 games to none in a 4-7 series. Game of my life. I pitched the 3-hitter. The game, a dream game. And so I'm getting interviewed after the last out by Tony Kubek, who's NBC's announcer for that ball game, and we're standing on the first baseline. And at Three Rivers Stadium, the dugouts are ground level. And I'm doing this interview, and Tony's here, and I'm looking up, there's guy arguing with the security people up there. And I look back, and this guy jumps 10 feet down, hits the ground, and after a second step, I see it's my dad. Oh. And I will not insult your emotions by making that up. My father, this plumber from Falls Village, Connecticut, was not going to be denied getting down on that field and see his son. We all have fathers or have had fathers. And we all have these memories, these signature moments. And I will never forget that man. And he got in the interview with me and Tony Kubek. This plumber from Falls Village on national TV. But to see my dad and see that look in his face, I will have that forever. And watching Clemente play, Roberto Clemente, that was his showcase. The 71 series where he showed everybody in baseball, around baseball, what we've been seeing in Pittsburgh for 20 years. We're so lucky to have him. He had a presence. I mean, I wrote a book and I put a picture in there of him that I insisted they use. He had a presence, even when he was kneeling in the on-deck circle, he had a presence. And he was different. We were all good ball players. You got to be a good ball player to be a major leaguer. He was a level above. And his legacy, for the humanitarian things he did, not, I'll get to the plane crash and him dying, trying to go to Nicaragua to help people. He lived that before that. He just didn't talk it. He said, I believe in the people who suffer. And he lived it. And he lived it every day. And the way he dressed and the way he carried himself, I mean, he had that presence. And so you have a lot of major leaguers who have done a lot of wonderful things, charitable things, good things, solid things, big things. And their legacies live on. But Clemente's legacy, I think, doesn't go away ever. Every year there's a book written about him. There's a column. There's a street, a playground. It's amazing how that legacy lives. And I had an honor that I wish I'd had to wait 20, 25 or 30 years for. I gave the eulogy at the memorial in Puerto Rico. I will never forget doing that. And I got lucky. A little town from Falls Village, Connecticut, running across and spending 10 years as a teammate of with Roberto Clemente. I mean, you got to keep track of that kind of stuff, or you don't have anything. And so I miss him too. He's part of that. In fact, I want to, I sometimes don't have much credibility, but I want to show a little. It's about 5 minutes. If you bear with me, a little quick video.
Hang on.
Heading into Game 3, and it put the Pirates in a 2-0 home. Game 3 was, for all intents and purposes, a must-win game for the Pirates.
We needed it because going down 3 would have been very difficult. But for some reason, we knew that we were going to win. But in order to beat Baltimore, we had to have good pitching because they did have a good hitting team, and we had the right guy on the mound.
After getting beat up in the playoffs, I said, you can't be what you were in the playoffs. You're not that kind of pitcher. You're a slider guy. So I wasn't trying to throw the fastball by people anymore. And just got on a roll and made one bad pitch. And Frank Robinson hit it in the seats, but that's the only one they got.
Obviously, when you're down 2-0, I mean, just think about the pressure of pitching Game 3. Pirates were looking to get back, in the World Series, and you do it at home, which is a big advantage if you get good pitching. He pitched great.
And he pitched a magnificent 3-hitter today.
Not only the win was needed, but just the way he went about it, I think that lifted the whole club and set the stage for the rest of the series.
The Pirates won 5-1, and the magic continued even after the game, when Steve was conducting an on-field interview with Tony Kubek.
I'm walking on a cloud, and I'm looking up on the dugout. The dugout's concrete 10 feet above the surface at Three Rivers. I see this guy, didn't have my glasses on, and see this guy trying to break through security. By the time he takes the second step, when he lands, I see it's my dad.
His father wants to get down and see him, and Steve was trying to get him down.
And and I say that all the time, and I would never make that up and insult people's emotions. But, we all have fathers or have had fathers, and you have singular moments, and that was one of them. To see this plumber jumping down on the field to be with his kid that just won a World Series game.
With me down here, Steve Blass, today's winning pitcher, and Mr. Blass. Mr. Blass, you've been crawling all over your son. This is quite a thing for him, isn't it?
Why, I guess so. Boy, this is something I get. Boy, what this is great.
Yeah, that was pretty wonderful. Talk about other teammates. I have to tell you about my good friend, and we all love our pitchers. All us pitchers love our catchers. Manny Sanguillen. Manny Sanguillen caught for the Pirates, and if it wasn't for Johnny Bench, he would have been the catcher of the decade of the 70s. Just a great job that he did. But we brought him up to the big leagues in 1968, and he spoke better English then than he does now. So if you run across Sanguillen, just nod and smile. That's what I do. And everybody that's a big leaguer loves the game. Not everybody wears the love of the game on their sleeve the way Sanguillen did. You knew he was having the time of his life when he was on a big league baseball field. But I had the somewhat honor of pitching to Manny Sanguillen when he had his first major league catching experience. His first game as a major league catcher. And it was in Chicago against the Cubs. And so we go out and we go out 1, 2, 3 in the top of the first inning. I go out to start the bottom of the first inning. And just like this, I give up 2 hits and a walk. I got the bases loaded. Nobody out. And who's coming up but Ernie Banks, Hall of Famer, 500 career home runs. And that time, with the bases loaded and nobody out, his first catching experience, Manny Sanguillen decides to have his first ever pitcher's conference. Turns around, time up, comes running out of the mound, lifts the mask, big smile on his face, and says, "Oh, you know." And that's it. He goes back. What do I know? I get the bases loaded and I get a Hall of Famer up there. So he puts down 3 fingers for the slider. I throw the slider. Ernie Banks promptly hits it into Lake Michigan for the greatest home run. And I guess I did know. It doesn't end there, though. 5 days later, I'm going to pitch again, and Sangy is in there for the second time. He's going to catch his second major league game. Deja vu. I go out after we did nothing in the first inning. 2 walks, infield hit. I got the same thing I had up at Wrigley Field in Chicago. Bases loaded, nobody out. Only it's not Ernie Banks this time. It's Henry.
Oh, jeez.
Van Garen. Yeah, that's what I said. Saying he decides to have his second ever pitcher's conference. I'm out. Comes up, lifts the man. "Oh, you throw double play." Like you call Sears and order a double play. And that's it. Then he goes back again. So, he goes back there, puts 1 finger down. So I wind up, I let go of the ball. You ever have those dreams where everything slows down? As the ball got closer and closer to Henry, Henry's eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger, and he just crushes the ball, but he doesn't get under it. Line drive, laser, vapor trail, knocks 3 bricks out of the wall at Fulton County Stadium. Stand up, 3-run double. All the runs are in. Henry's on second base, Manny Sanguillen. Listen, that's a big smile. I know say double, I say double play. By that time, Murtaugh's out there. Speaking of out, I was out there also. So those things can happen. I talked about Johnny Bench. I had an interesting experience with Johnny Bench. I had 2 of them actually, and Pat Slowy, my neighbor, will relate to one of them. But I went to one All-Star game, and it's fabulous. First of all, going down on the plane. How about this experience? On the plane we're going, there was me and Clemente, Starshell, Oliver, and Sanguillen. All made the All-Star team, 1972. So we're going down to Atlanta. Clemente gets up out of his seat halfway down the flight and comes over to me and said, "Would you and Karen care to join Vera and I for dinner tonight in Atlanta?" How good is that? Roberto Clemente said, "Invite you to join him." That's pretty cool. And so we get there, and you walk into an all-star clubhouse, and it's I get goosebumps still. It's there's Tom Seaver, there's Gibson, there's Carlton, there's Mays, Aaron, Billy Williams. Probably I was on the same team, and then I put him in the Hall of Fame. But it's studded with Fergie Jenkins, Seaver Kuzman, all these great players, and all the best of your league playing right there. So my locker was right next to Johnny Bench. So I sit down. Johnny walks in. I said, "Hey, John, how you doing?" He said, "Good, Steve." He said, "I understand you're pitching the 3rd inning," because they structure the All-Star games like that. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what kind of signs you want? When's a fastball to the curve?" I said, "Well, John, every time I face you, you seem to know what's coming, so why don't we just wing it?" So we had a good laugh about that. He laughed more than I did. One of my favorite baseball stories involves, the other bench story for Pat. We live in this neighborhood, so after the World Series, we have the same team intact, so I think we're going to do it again. And we ran a table to kill our division, and now we're going to play against the Reds to go to the World Series if we beat them. So before we started that series, I talked to a contractor that works in our neighborhood, and I said, "I've got this asphalt pitted out driveway. I said, I want concrete. I'm going to do another World Series check. This is going to happen. So we get to the fifth game, and I'm ahead in the fifth game. That's 3 out of 5. We went there. We're going. I pitched 8 innings, and I got relieved by our other neighbor, Dave Justy. We're ahead 3-2. Dave comes in, had a great palm ball. He threw a palm ball, and Bench hits it over the wall. And now it's 3-3. I'm going to hedge my bet. I walk into the clubhouse. I get the phone. I call collect the contractor. I said, cancel the concrete. We're going with asphalt. So those kind of things can happen. But 1973, I do have to tell you both sides of the story because, you know, I was on the top of the World Series. I won 2 games. Finished second to Clemente in the World Series for the MVP. And then the next year I won 19 games. And then going from that pinnacle, I think it won 78 games in a 5-year period. I was winning 15 games a year. The next year, I couldn't get anybody out. Couldn't get the ball over the plate. To this day, I don't know why. Tried everything you can possibly imagine. Being humiliated and knowing I shouldn't be out there after it just kept going on and on, but I couldn't quit. I wasn't raised that way. When they had the quitting class in school, I was absent. And to go out and pitch and try to pitch at Three River Stadium in front of 30,000 people when I know I shouldn't have been there. And, you know, the toughest thing about that, you know, there was silence when I was pitching. It was so awful because they were rooting so hard for me, so hard to get it back. It just wasn't there. And that was the toughest part, to hear the silence. And I was getting 200 letters a week, never one negative letter. The support was unbelievable from this town that made our family feel so welcome. And we'll never forget that part of it, and the good part too, of course. But it was baffling. I couldn't get the ball over the plate. I mean, I would be up in the backyard in our neighborhood with tears running down my eyes because I didn't know why I was not going to be a Pirate anymore. And, that was tough. It was tough on our family. Our kids were 7 and 9. You know, they go to school and say, your father's a bum. Kids can be cruel without knowing they're cruel. You know, these are the same kids that up in the school that be asking them for my autograph years before. And I knew how it worked. I knew how major leagues can work. It's win or go away. But we circled the family. We kept everything intact with the help of our neighbors. And our neighbors are fabulous. In this neighborhood that we had so much fun in and had the unbelievable 4th of July parties, they rallied around too when I was going through. And it was 2 years. It was just, I tried everything. And finally I had to let it go. But the reason I bring it in, there's a balance. And I think I learned almost as much, maybe as much, going through that and surviving as I did when I was up on top. And if you don't get carried away, you've got a chance. Because it's what you do, not who you are. And I got to realize that. But boy, it was awful. It was awful for 2 years. But Dad always said, if you're not afraid to work, you'll always eat. So I went out and got a job. I went out and got a job. And wound up broadcasting for the Pirates for 34 years. And making it, and I'm still doing some ambassadorial work for them. So I got through it. But it was a learning experience. And St. Karen helped me unbelievably. And that has been the rock in our marriage. Think about a baseball player's wife. Raising kids, I called her one time from St. Louis, said there's something in the house. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. She got to deal with that. Kids in school, all that stuff. So I retired a couple of years ago, and it was my turn to help Karen out a little bit with some of her issues physically. So I've lived that dream. I continue to live that dream. So that's all part of it. How many people in this room remember Casey Stangler? Great manager of the Yankees, right? Hall of Famer, all those world championships. Casey retires from the Yankees. And then in 1962, the Mets come into being, and they hired Casey to be the manager for brand value, name value in New York and all that. And he takes the job. In 1962, they had the worst record of any team in the history of Major League Golf. They lost 120 games, 120. Casey was the manager, worst team. They also had the worst player in the history of Major League Baseball, Marv Thornberry. We used to call him Marvelous Marv. So they look up one night in this horrible season, and Marv's on first base. Nobody knows how he got there. He's been there all year. It was Marv. Marv's on first base. The next Met hits a gap shot on left center. Marv comes all the way around to score. The other team gets the ball. They go over and touch third base, and they call Marv out for missing. Casey storms out of the dugout, and the umpire said, "Stay right there, Casey. He also missed second." So those kind of things can happen. I know I've been up here a long time, but just a couple more things. Usually this time of year we have our fantasy camp out at the Pirate City, and I've had a love affair with that. I do the kangaroo court every morning, but one of my favorite stories about in fantasy camp is a bunch of guys. You have to be at a certain age, 35 or I think it's 40 maybe, to pretend you're a ball player. I mean, you get treated like a ball player. We have a gentleman here who's been there 3 times, and you have your own bat, you have your bubblegum cards, you have your uniform, your name on the back. So it's a neat thing for a baseball junkie that loves the game. Unbelievable, that loves the game. So they're out there. This had to be 10 years ago, I guess, and they're playing their games. All these old guys are playing the games, and I see this car pull up to the home run fence in right field on one of the fields, and this elderly couple gets out, and they got their hands on the fence. They're just watching guys play a ball game. And as I'm walking in the clubhouse to get something, I hear the wife say to the husband, "Wow, I hope they get better by April." I hope they get better by April too. So you have that going on. You know what? I'm just going to finish up by saying that people ask me for advice every once in a while, and I don't do much inspirational talking. I don't have much advice, but I've come down to this. One thing I believe in is that one of the greatest gifts, if not the greatest gift that we have as human beings, is the gift of time. You only have so much. It's not negotiable. You can't buy more. And I think a lot of how we'll be judged will be based on how we distribute that gift and how we receive that gift, the gift of time. And it only takes a minute to be kind. It takes a minute. I know as an athlete, if I reached out and had 2 minutes to say hello to a kid that's walking by, that kid might remember that for a long time. And it just takes a minute to be kind. And that's, if you're kind, you got the foundation. Whenever I talk to kids, I said, if you're kind, you're halfway there. You're halfway there. So I don't get real serious about it, but I don't know if we have any time to take any questions, but I know Patty, you did one, I remember you did want to ask me if I'd ever hit a home run, and thank you for asking me. I did hit one, but it was so long ago I can't remember much about it, except it was September 5th, 1969. There's 28,212 people there, winds out of the southwest at 5 miles an hour, humidity 45%, 72 degrees. And the pitcher was Ken Holtzman, and there was 2 runners on. Other than that, it's quite thanks for asking.
What team?
It was against the Cubs, Kenny Holtzman, yeah. And the great thing was, I ran down to first base, and the coach said, "Take a left." And I had always veered off. That was great, but then I got to second base, so there was no coach there. There's one at first and third. Now what do I do? Right. So I've been blessed with Karen, with our neighborhood in Pittsburgh, with the people I've met here in Bradenton, our neighbors. Buying a home here was very special for us. So I've continued to live this dream. So I would just say that it's been very nice. And Patty, I would like you to come up here. Karen and I would like to make a donation to the library.
That's right.
I don't have anywhere to go. I'm
We have a
retired.
few minutes left. People have questions.
Yeah,
Yes.
anybody? Yes.
Were you a power hitter in high school baseball?
No, I was a good hitter, yeah, but I get asked about why guys can't hit, that way. I guess we just leave the intensity and don't practice as much, don't get as much coaching. The idea of pitching to me was so absorbing. And that's another situation I'll get into with you. All the statistics and analytics now. I used to resist clutter, but boy, there's a lot for these guys to think about now. There's a lot going through their heads. But I was a decent hitter. I hit that one home run, but
You don't remember?
But that day I was 4 for 5.
Are you kidding?
Yes.
We're gonna have a season this year?
There's the 24,000 million zillion dollar question. I think yes. It's going to be painful. We were talking about that before. There's two sides that need to figure it out. And I'll be quite honest. I don't know much about the economics at that level. I don't know much about all the things that are involved. So I don't have an opinion other than I got my fingers crossed because I don't want to have to go back to 1994. We lost the season and lost a World Series. I'm still embarrassed about that. And, by the way, if I have one thing I will do if I ever own Major League Baseball, I will have World Series games in the afternoon.
Yes.
Like we all grew up, ran home from school to catch the last 3 innings. It'll never happen because of television. But didn't we all grow up trying to get home to catch the last 3 innings and the teacher put the score up? And it breaks my heart that the Pirates had the first one. Game 4 of the 71 series was the first World Series night game.
Oh, we touched school.
Yeah. How many grandmothers were very ill that day? It's like opening day, but the World Series, I rode my bike to school and raced home to watch the last 3 games. I miss that. Yes.
Do you ever have any explanation for why you've lost the ability to throw?
Are you breaking up? No.
I think of Paul Ankel, who had the same thing, and then the second baseman for the Yankees.
Steve Sachs.
Yeah,
Sachs,
Steve Sachs.
Mel Block.
Yeah.
Mark Wohlers.
Yeah.
He's asking about. I never figured out what happened. It's just that when I started coming through, it just didn't work. It was this or that.
Was it a confidence thing more?
It had to be a mental thing. I never had a sore arm in my life. Never had a still don't. I can do that as a pitcher. That's not as common as you might think.
Yeah.
Most pitchers would maybe give you that. But I never did figure it out. And I tried everything. It was all mental. I just locked up on the way down to release the ball. And I actually talked to a guy that I did visualization and everything. But I talked to a guy named Richard Crowley who is in that business of helping people. And he worked with me. And I threw a game in fantasy camp. And I threw the ball the way I wanted to. And I just did it one time. I didn't want to mess with it. But and his theory was replacement. All right, we don't know why, we don't know what. We're just going to fix it. We're going to replace that negative with a positive. That's
I would have, I thought Paul Ankel had a real shot at being a Hall of Famer.
Well, Rick Ankiel from the Cardinals, so if you don't know the story, he's very promising, hard-throwing, young left-hand pitcher in the playoffs. And Karen and I were sitting watching the TV. And I said, the phone's going to ring. And this kid was throwing the ball all over the place, behind people and everything. I said, the phone's going to ring. I had an 800 number. Whenever anything that happened. And my advice was, just don't quit. Something might fall into places because you've done it. So something might fall into place. And I went with it as long as I could. Nothing fell into place for me, but I said, keep trying because you've done it. Yes?
My wife and I just showed up today, and we read in the paper that Steve's going to be here. And I know him from Upper St. Clair baseball. My grandson plays with his grandson, baseball, Chris. And I can tell you, him and Karen are wonderful people.
Say hello, Mom. Yes.
What do you think about the efforts of Major League Baseball to speed up the game?
It's got to start. It's got to start when you sign a kid in the minor leagues because if you don't do it then, I don't know. I was always hyper. So I mean, the last game of the World Series was 2 hours and 15 minutes. But you got to start early. Or these kids will start taking time, and some of them work. But there are some guys, but it's It's not as many as there should be. I pitched a game against the Phillies in an hour and 38 minutes. I lost the
Game's
game.
now over 3 hours.
Yep, but there's also people who say, I drove for 40 miles, I don't care how long this lasts, but I would love to see it faster, because I think if you're a pitcher and you're not sure of yourself, and you're walking around the mound, taking a lot of time, what message does that send to the hitter? You're not sure of yourself. Oh, that's a great position to have the hitter be in. I used to try to rush the hitters and get them out of their routines of the Velcro and all that stuff. I told Sean Casey from Upper St. Clair, neighbor, I said, Sean, I would have drilled you, and I love you to death. If you gave me this all the time, it would make me crazy, because Bob Gibson, the other guys, we got the ball, all right, let's go. And if you're gonna do that, maybe if you can rush it a little bit, get them out of your routine, maybe you get an edge. Maybe not, but I thought it did.
I heard Jim Bouton give an interview one time. Why is the game so slow? It's at Velcro.
Do you ever think we'll go back to more complete games from the pitchers?
No, and I wish. Tom Seaver, after he stopped pitching, broadcast a little bit for the Mets, and I'll never forget him in that Three River Stadium. We were talking about our game. He said, my dream is to have a pitcher out there in the 5th inning looking into the dugout, like they sometimes do now at the 100 pitch mark, and have the manager say, that's all you. And we were so proud to get a Major League Baseball to pitch 9 innings. I mean, that was a big deal. And, it was a big deal when you're coming up through, but complete games weren't a big deal when you got Bob Gibson in the year of the pitcher, 1968, 37 starts, 28 complete games. Quick Bob Gibson story. In the World Series that year, he struck out 17 in a World Series game. Tom Gorman, great Hall of Fame umpire, was behind the plate. So the writers all came to talk to Gibson, then they went in to talk to Tom Gorman. They said, Tom, hey, wasn't Gibson great today? He said, yeah, he struck out 10, I struck out 7. Yes.
Were there steroids back when you played?
They were just starting. I read an article in Sports Illustrated, I researched this, in 1972. They said the amphetamines will rampant, speed, but the next problem is going to be anabolic steroids. And boy, were they right. It's a sad chapter, and it's confused a lot of things about keeping records in baseball, Hall of Fame candidates. It's affected.
You played at a great time.
I played in the late 60s, early 70s, and it was before some of it was before expansion, and the leagues were so there's 8 teams in each league. You talk about concentrating talent, and I love it now that more towns can have their teams. But boy, when you pitched against a major league team before expansion, it was unbelievable. There's no easy outs. Yes.
Growing up in a community of only 800, you had to have just about every kid come up for baseball in high school, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
To field a team?
Yeah, we did. Interesting thing about our little high school, it was a regional high school, 6 little towns that made our regional high school. I made it to the big leagues. Karen's cousin made it to the big leagues. Karen's brother made it to the big leagues. So the Pirates, John Lamb, Lamb, because at one time we had a pitching staff that had the mixed grill, moose, veal, and lamb. John Lamb. He actually saved the game for me. But as I said, we had an amazing coach. His name was Ed Kirby. You wouldn't know him. But he sent 3 of us to the big leagues out of that small little high school where you scheduled 30 games and play about 15. It was a heck of a program. But yeah, we didn't have too many extra players. And I had to play right field for the first 2 years until her brother graduated. And then I got to be the man on the staff. Well, I know it's been a lengthy afternoon. The chairs are